This play's called Out of Town. It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced by the Hilltop Players. In it, you hear Miss Welsh, Mr. Bellevue, Miss Bott, Miss Greenier, Mr. Ho, Miss Kaczynski, Mr. McNann, Mr. Chance, and Miss Spinks. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. Yeah, just about. The sky's beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I'd better tell you how our town lies. The main part of the town is Main Street. A couple of streets over is the railway station. Tracks go right through the center of town. You have the Congregational Church. Across the street's Presbyterian. Methodist and Unitarian aren't far from there. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks. Center of town is the town hall and post office combined. Jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from the front steps. Along the ways is a row of stores, kitchen posts and horse blocks in front of them. First automobile is going to come along in about 5 years. Belonged to Banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. He lives up in the big white house on top of the hill. Next to the grocery store is the Morgan Family Drug Store. Most everybody in town manages to look into those two stores once a day. Public school's just outside of town. High school's still farther over. 8:45 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. Right near town is the doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. Near the back door is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a load of burdock. Right next door is Editor Webb's house. In those days, our newspaper come out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel, and Mrs. Webb's garden. Just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers, and there's a big butternut tree, too. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there on the mountains say 1670, 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Hershey's, same names as around here now. Well, as I said, it's about dawn. The lights on in town are in a cottage over by the tracks where a Polish mother's just had twins. And in the Joe Crowell house where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the paper. And in the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. Naturally, out in the country, all around, there have been lights on for some time, what with the Milkins and so on. But town people sleep late. So, another day's begun. Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case. Got that call 1:30 this morning. And his wife's coming downstairs to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, a long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. Pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery there now, and with a whole mess of Gibbses and Hersheys. She was Julia Hershey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. Mrs. Webb's coming downstairs to get her breakfast, too. And here comes Joe Crowell, Jr., delivering Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, some twins been over in Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious going on since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My teacher, Miss Foster's, getting married to a fella over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course it's not my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
What's the only day? Going to rain?
No, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
You ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
Want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Crowell. Joe was awful bright and graduated top of high school here, head of his class. So he got a scholarship to Boston MIT, that is. Graduated head of his class there, too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Gonna be a great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Children! Children! Time Time to get up. George! Rebecca!
Morning, Ma.
Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth come over at 11. Guess knows about 2. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a real rest. I think it would do you good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
I declare, you got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks of that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George!
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pa.
Don't you hear your mother calling you? Guess I'll go up here and get 40 winks.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Mom, what dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his sleep. I washed and ironed the blue gingham for you special.
Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George throwing soap at me.
I'll come and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We got a factory in our town, too. Hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwright's own it and bring him a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth. That's a fact. Wally, put away your book.
Oh, Mom, by 10 o'clock I know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates. That's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Oh, I gotta go.
You don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants at the knee. Stand up straight, Emily.
Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
You look real nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Here, chick, chick, chick. No, go away, you. Go away. Here, chick, chick, chick. What's the matter with you? Oh, fight. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where'd you come from? Oh, don't be scared. Nobody's going to hurt you. Oh, good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I'd go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use.
Oh, have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself like that, I string some of these beans.
Here, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julie Gibbs?
Here, give me some more of those beans. Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient waiting to see Dr. Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
He did, that old thing. Why, it's so big, I don't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know? $350 worth? What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if we ever had the chance...
How does your doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little and said if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me somewhere.
What did he say?
You know how he is. Haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said, might make him discontented with Grover's Corners, go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years he makes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's treat enough for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb is a good mind to give up Napoleon over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's in Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it all out like we're going to buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris, all right? Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know?
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only seems to me that once in your life before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk English and they don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now we're going to skip a few hours, but first we want a little more information about the town, kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch in a few details of our past here. Is Professor Willard here?
Yes.
May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? A few brief notes, thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in our world. We're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings. But that's all more recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly fascinating fossils have been found. I may say, unique fossils. 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum in our university at any time. That is, at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation? Mean precipitation, etc.?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Yes. Anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock. Cotahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now entirely disappeared. Traces in the 3 families. Migration toward the end of the 17th century and English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock, for the most part. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard.
Within town limits? 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor.
Oh, yes. Indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates, constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, ma'am. Not at all.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you again. Now the political and social report. Editor Webb. Mr. Webb?
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating the apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you the run here about board or select. All males vote to the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling a professional man. 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republicans, 6% Democrats, 4% Socialists, rest indifference. Religiously, we're 85% Protestants, 12% Catholics, rest indifference.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduated from high school, settled down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down in El Reno Street or in Holliston. We've got 1 or 2 time drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. Now, ma'am, I say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here, except in the medicine chest. Right girl for the snake bites, you know? Always was.
Is there no one in town or world?
Just come forward, will you, where we can all hear you. What were you saying?
Is there no one in town or world of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes. Everybody is something terrible. Seems like they spend most of the time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for the way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those that can't help themselves. And those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb? Mr. Webb, is there any cultural or love or beauty in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls that play the piano at high school commencement, but they ain't much happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture, but maybe this is a place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning, and we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them, and we watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them, but those other things, you're right, ma'am. There ain't much. Robinson Crusoe in the Bible and Handel's Largo, we all know that. And Whistler's Mother. Those are just about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners and all dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town. A buzzing and a humming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street. The horses dozing at the hitching posts. Y'all remember what it's like? Doc Gibbs is in his office tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb's cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir, it's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already.
I'm so hungry. I have a thing for lunch. Do you want to come over?
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promise.
See you tomorrow.
Emily,
Bye.
walk simple. Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but the last minute Miss Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time in both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nights when you're working on your homework.
Wait, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. Passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? I think we might work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine. And once in a while, you could give me a kind of hint or two about one of those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just some little hints.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So, if you could stop, George, you whistle to me and I'll give you a hint.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I figure that's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says, whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I better be getting out to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily. Come and help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old will George be?
I don't know.
Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today and it was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try to get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Well, Mama, that's not what I meant. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. Never heard of such foolishness.
Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was. If I do say it, I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mammy Cartwright.
But Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you. Thank you. That'll do. We'll have to interrupt here again. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Thank you, Emily. There are some more things we want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. I had to go out to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all of that reading matter with a glue, a silicate glue, that'll make it keep 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in the Bible and the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the names of the kings and some copies of the wheat contracts and the contracts for the sales of slaves. Yet every night, all those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work and the smoke went up in the chimney. Same as here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we could piece together out of the joking poems and comedies they wrote for theater back then. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, and people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles or the Lindbergh flight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were, in our growing up, in our marrying, and in our living and our dying. Blessed be the ties that bind. Wow, good deal of time's come by. It's evening. You can hear the church. You can hear the choir practice going on at the Congregational Church. The children are home doing their work. The day's running down like a tired clock.
Now look here. Everybody. Music comes into the world to give pleasure. Softer. Softer. Give out your heads that music's only good when it's loud. You leave the loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't even beat them. Even you wanted to. Now again, tenors.
Psst. Emily.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't work at all. The line's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Emily, can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer is in yards.
In yards. How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, in square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
Square yards of wallpaper.
Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't moonlight terrible? And choir practice going on? I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Compton Cook. Hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily. And thanks.
Good night, George.
Before I forget it, How many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hershey's wedding? Show your hands. That will be fine. That'll be right nice. We will do the same music we did for Jane's Trowbridge's last month. Now we'll do Art Thou Weary? Art Thou Languid? It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
Oh, George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa.
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I'm 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do after school's over?
Well, you know, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you? To get up early and milk and feed the stock. You'll be able to hoe and hay all day.
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was a mother chopping wood. There you see a mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go out the back and chop wood. I suppose this got tired of asking you. She just gave up and decided to be to do it herself. And you eat her meals and put on cold cheap nights for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hard girl people around the house, but we don't like very much. Well, I know all I'll do is call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I decided to raise spending money twice a week. Not a quarter shopping wood for your mother, but the present you give her, because you're getting older. And I imagine there are plenty of things you're trying to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see. Tomorrow it's a payday. You can count on it. Probably Becca, flight chat to somewhere too. Want to do what happened to your mother? For our prize nevertheless is full.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
Oh no, she's not old choir. Shedding more worse than an old crow. Trace around the tree at the start of the night. Just about time you're retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night. Good night, Mr. Foster. See you guys next week. I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he'll want to put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Good night, Irma.
Good night. Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon, will you? Potato weather for sure.
Actually, I didn't want to say a word about it from the others, but now that we're alone, really, it's the worst scandal that's ever in this town.
What?
Simon Simpson.
Now, Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of the church drinking drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it? But it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have. It doesn't happen anywhere near so often. My, I hate to go on to bed on a night like this. I better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella.
Good night.
Good night.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's bright as day. I can see Mr. Stump scowling at the window now. You think we've been to a dance the way the men folk carry on.
All right, well, good night.
Good night.
Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you step out the corner to gossip a lot of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do all that time I was away?
Oh, I read, as usual. What are the girls gossip about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Simpson before gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess no more about Simon Simpson for anybody in this town. Some people aren't made for small town life. I don't know how that'll end. But as we can do is just leave it alone. Come, get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, Julia. It's getting late. First thing you know, you catch a cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you have a wood shot for a while anyway.
Oh dear. There's always so many things to pick up, seems like.
No. Start getting upstairs.
You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front doors every night. All those people up in that part of town do.
They're getting certified. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got anything fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window. You're always spoiling everything.
Well, let me look just a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, the guys that sit up all night with telescopes would see it first and they'd tell about it. And it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Once the lights are out. Simon Simpson's rolling around a little. His wife's moving down on a hunt for him. Here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Haven't any troubles in your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself. But don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa.
I never told you about that letter Jane Crawford got from a minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crawford, the Crawford Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
What's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
What do you know?
That's the end of the first act, friends. You can take a little break for those who need it.